Okay, good morning again. Today I want to just delve into the topic of music. So, what is music? Music is generally defined as the art of organizing sounds to create a combination of form, harmony, melody, or rhythm, often with expressive content. It's found in almost all societies, providing a way to communicate, express emotions, and connect people. Music is generally understood as humanly organized sound or the purposeful arrangement of sounds. Now, during this presentation, I would like people to jump in there if they have any comments or anything that they want to share about this particular topic. So, what is worldly music? Some say it is music that is secular or focused on themes and values that are considered to be of the world rather than God. It can refer to music that glorifies worldly pleasure, focuses on material things, or promotes behaviors that are contrary to Christian values. The term is used to discuss the potential impact of music on spiritual growth and discernment. Often, worldly music is described as having lyrics or themes that glorify sin, promote sexual immortality, encourage violence, or focus on materialism. Some believe that listening to worldly music can hinder spiritual discernment, negatively impact one's relationship with God, and lead to a greater attachment to worldly values. So, when we think about what is worldly music, does anyone have any comments on do they believe that worldly music stunts your spiritual growth?
I think it would matter on what type the words in the songs. Like some of them, like there's, for instance, a secular song that promotes women, and so that to me would be in line with our thinking. So it would all depend on what the words are talking about. If they're talking about, oppressing people, then it would be bad. But if it's uplifting people, I think it would not be bad. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So this presentation is based on a presentation Elder Parmenter did back in 2023. And during the presentation, someone brought up syncopation um, as a definition of making music worldly. So I wanted to look into what that is. So syncopation is a variety of rhythms played together to make a piece of music, making part or all of a tune or piece of music off beat. More simply, syncopation is a disturbance or interruption of the regular flow of rhythm, a placement of rhythmic stresses or accents where they wouldn't normally occur. Moderately syncopated melodies, particularly in drum beats, induce a stronger desire to move and dance. This is especially true for individuals who enjoy dancing. Syncopation activates the left sensory motor cortex, an area of the brain associated with movement and coordination. This suggests a direct link between syncopation and the activation of motor systems in the brain. So, when we think about this concept, syncopation, and how it delves into sensing or activating your sensory motor cortex, which then brings upon movement, do we think that this is wrong? Do we think that if we want to say worldly music involves music being syncopated, which triggers something else in the brain, do we think that this is wrong? Do we think that adding movement as we listen to music is something that is not, Christ-like or a part of our Christian values? What does anyone think about that? Now, I do see there are chats, but I'm not reading the chat. So if someone wanted to share the chats or the person who wrote the chat want to share it or someone else, that's fine too. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'll go. Happy Sabbath, Shomika.
Happy Sabbath.
Um, I grew up dancing. My mom had me as a tot, right, in tap dancing. And I went on to ballet and jazz, and then I got chosen from a group of girls to travel the United States and perform professionally. And we went all over, and it was a wonderful experience. Um, then for a long time, it was in the background of my life. Um, I personally enjoy when I'll hear a beat that gets me wanting to move a little bit, especially as I'm getting older now. Um, it's kind of a surprise when it happens because I'll just go into it kind of, and not in front of people. I'm talking about personally in my own home. Um, And some of it is stimulated, I think, because it draws from a former time in my life. So it's a form of reminiscing a little bit, but it's
Mhm.
also a great way to burn some calories and get moving. And I find that it sort of begins me in action. Like, oh, you know what? I better get over there and wash them dishes because I don't have a dishwasher. Or I'm the dishwasher, right? And so, for those reasons, I really enjoy it. I don't think there's anything wrong if you're not dancing to be a come on, or sexually trying, you know what I mean? Like trying to
Hmm.
show off in a sexual way. If you're just like you watch children, they just love music. I see my grandkids, certain beats or whatever, just get them moving and it's so cute and we all start laughing. And I think that's good. I think the laughter is good. I think it releases a lot of stress in a natural way. And I think some of our old ways of viewing dancing was just too stringent and it's just not normal. It's not normal to restrain yourself. That's like asking a man to restrain himself from crying, because it's not manly to cry. There are certain things I think God enjoys to see us feeling happy and joyful. And a little joyful dance is good for the soul, I think.
Thank you, Susan, for sharing that.
Hi, Shomika. I want to talk about syncopation.
Okay.
So I was looking into music, what good music, bad music was, especially when I was in the conservative Adventist circle.
Hmm.
And I read a book about how if you have a beat that's first and third, that's more of a elevating music. And where you sort of, it's a marching song. I think if you listen to a marching song, the beats are coming from the first and the third, and bad music will be beats that come on the second and the fourth, and that will sort of cause you to swing sideways versus marching. But now I hear classic Christian music and it's all over. So that principle has sort of vanished now. So I think, as Elder Parminder taught back in UK, fast-paced music is good at times when you need to do exercise, but mostly we should be on that slow brain mode of Christian calm music, which is more healthy to our body. So it depends where you are, what you're doing. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
That reminds me of my own experience a little while back. My son and I were talking about old songs, and I got to talking about music from the 80s, which is when I kind of came of age. I was in college, and everything in that time period was about dancing. All the music was about dancing and synthesized music and not the kind of stuff you can just sit in a bar and listen to. Everybody was just expected to get on the dance floor and do their thing. And we started playing, I started playing some of it or just talking with him about it and it just kind of like the music from the Breakfast Club was, what we were focusing on. And I would play the stuff and all of a sudden it's like, I'm acting like I'm 21 years old again. Unfortunately, I'm 60. And I ended up injuring my neck. It just, I had no control at that point of how it was making me move or act because it was taking me back to that point. And I thought, well, I better not do this again for a long time. So there can be some negatives to that kind of thing. If you're not used to dancing around and moving around, or if you have previous injuries, it's probably not a good idea. Or to be in real, as enthusiastic as you were in your younger years. And I was familiar with the syncopated thing because I played jazz music. Susan danced, I played instruments. And it does have a certain effect on you. And like another previous commenter, my problem with some of the modern music is the lyrics. When you mention or when you ask somebody, what do you think of when you think of innocent music? Somebody might say the Beach Boys. But I've been in situations where I've heard someone playing Beach Boy music and the lyrics were incredibly sexist. And I could no longer enjoy it because the lyrics that seem benign to me or that I ignored in the past, I can't ignore anymore.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Linda. So we were talking about syncopation, and then if we think about is syncopation makes music worldly, or what about does the beat itself, like if music has a hearty beat, does that make it worldly? So some sources suggest that the strong rhythmic and percussive elements introduced by drums can be seen as have a negative worldly influence in certain religious contexts. The argument is that drums can be linked to pagan ceremonies or that a strong beat may overpower the vocal aspects of worship. So, what do we think about this argument that just like the drums being as an addition to the music linking it back to pagan ceremonies being a problem with worship music.
The first thing that came to my mind when you brought this topic up was that the Adventists in the church used that Ellen White quote about the drums coming into the church, and that was going to
Hmm.
spell the end, right? And you have to laugh about that because it had nothing to do with the drums coming into the church. That's the message, right, of the hour. And but I don't know. I haven't studied that deep link about drums being linked to pagan ceremony, so I can't offer any knowledge upon that. But I do think of like, and boy, I hope this isn't a racist thought. I apologize if it sounds like one, but I can think of like when there was wars and the drums beated, and you, unfortunately, they showed a lot of the African war, right? I'm thinking of visuals that I've seen in my life, when those drums were beating and it stirred everybody up to go to war. So there's maybe something to that. Um, and as far as worship, I don't know if it fits into worship, unless it's some kind of soft brush sound, because it seems like it's just more beautiful to even hear the a cappella um, voices or piano or I don't know, the music we listen to that Elaine and Kathy play. It's beautiful, calming.
So Jackie actually, or, oh, is it Jackie or is it Susan? Sorry, I keep forgetting. I keep
Oh,
mixing you
that
two
was
up.
me, Susan.
Thank you. So the comment that you made about uh, racism, it actually triggered a thought because wasn't it like the Christian mandate to Christianize the the savages and eliminate all
Yeah,
all remnants of anything pertaining to their unique culture. So I can't help but think that a little element of that didn't seep into, you know, understanding of the effects of drums and African cultures, paganism, how all of that can seep into our understanding of.
Hello?
Yes.
That's the angle I learned it from Alyssa about African drumming, the effects of African drumming, that it was demonic, um, therefore harmful. So when I think it was Susan first that was speaking, that she doesn't know if it is racist,
Hmm.
it came to my mind that that is exactly how I learned it, but I did not think at the time of it from the context of racism. It is just since this message, no. And as you started doing this, my mind went back to I'm sorry in myself. I find myself being resistant because in myself I went, oh, this is the very angle that I learned about music from. And when I understand, no, that's racist. That was racist and destructive, a part of the Christian campaign to remove all that we hold or all that a different nation or nationality held. And so as you were doing it in myself, I found myself going, oh, finding myself feeling triggered. So it's so weird. Didn't think about it for a long while until now, as you guys are having the discussion. It's a very interesting discussion. But yes, I learned it from the angle of, oh, it is harmful because of these races. This is the African whatever drumming, and they did it as rituals and paganistic and all of those things.
takes me back to oh, sorry.
I just wanted to add quickly that I think that in many cases there's a power of association that comes with different types of music and beats and all that. And just as a side note, if you look at what traditionally for many decades, in different Christian churches, they will play an organ, and yet organ playing, started out in the bars. It had nothing to do with being a godly thing. So there's just a strong power of association here, which can link to cultural things as well. So
Right.
thank you.
Can I ask what's the original question? Your question?
The original question was, what do we think about this argument that drums itself, bringing drums into like worship and music, and how some people link the drums to pagan ceremonies. And so then that makes it worldly because of how drums are often associated with paganism.
Oh, I see. Well, I'm a drummer, so um, I've been drumming for probably since I was 18, so I'm 71 now, so I've been drumming for a while, both just for fun and professionally as well. And I have drummed in my younger times for religious practices. Um, some of the African cults that were strewn out throughout the Caribbean, which includes voodoo and Santeria and things like that. Um, and I think drumming encompasses other spiritual practices or religious practice or whatever, or however you want to call it. I don't want to define them because I don't know that much about the the religion or whatever practices they do, and I don't want to talk against them or down to it. But the rhythms themselves can produce hypnotic states in the people that are listening to it. And so, and I've seen it for myself that I've seen people come under the influence of the drumming and whoever possesses them, I don't know. I was there as a paid musician to perform and kind of thing. So I think it can have influence on people, and I don't know if it's negative or not. I think it can be. I don't know. I'll just put it that way. It can be.
Um, uh, Shamika,
Yes.
this is Donna. Thank you so much
Hmm.
for this wonderful study and this the topic of music. I just have to share. There was, last week when they had the No Kings parade,
Hmm.
they had this one video showed the Proud Boys was, I think it was in Tennessee. Yeah, I think it was in the Tennessean. And they were, they had their own little protest. And they were their the counter protest was the to the No Kings was the Proud Boys, and there was these No Kings protesters, and they had like a band, like they had people with a clarinet and a trombone, and like all the band kind of instruments.
Hmm.
And I think they might have even had a drummer. I don't remember, but in the situation in the video, it shows that some of the protesters from the No Kings and the Proud Boys were getting into kind of a heated discussion, just to say the least. And they were yelling at each other, and there were some, you know, language not so good. And all of a sudden, the people with band instruments started playing their music, and and they started, I think, dancing and moving with the groove. And that totally changed the entire environment where people no longer, they weren't yelling at each other and being violent, and it totally dispersed and so after the whole thing, even during the, the instrumental music, Proud Boys, some of the Proud Boys at the end started clapping because it was the music totally dispersed the anger and the hostility that was going on. I thought it was a really neat thing, and it was really neat to watch. So anyway, I just want to add that.
Thank you for adding that.
Just a quick comment. I wanted to add the first music that we hear in our lifetime is the drum, the heartbeat of our mothers.
Wow. Okay.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I heard a song not too terribly long ago that was first done by Paul Simon, and I can't think of the other person that I believe, well, it could have been Paul Simon that wrote it, but he and another gentleman did this song.
Art Garfunkel.
Thank you. Thank you. At any rate, this person, and I don't know his name, and there was drums that were played while he sang this particular song. And it was the most beautiful song I had ever heard. And it came from this man's heart. And I don't know, it was beautiful. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just want to add one more thing. I came to understand that syncopated rhythm is the opposite of our heartbeat.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Kathy, not David. Just going back to Carol's, I'm pretty much thinking she's talking of Sound of Silence, because that's done heavy metal singer, and he is Jewish. He was raised religiously Jewish, and so considers himself Jewish because I did see him actually on a Jewish talk show, because he went over to Israel, as a result of what's going on there. And his name is David. I don't know his last name, but he's a heavy metal, and he's become very. The song is actually, some people of the younger generations think that he wrote the song, and a lot of people, my mother included, I was like this. Me included, I like his rendition of it, and I also like the Simon and Garfunkel rendition of Sound of Silence. So I just want to make that comment.
Okay, thank you.
David Draymond. Oh, that was the right song. Thank you, Kathy.
So when it comes to the drum, I believe that the drums make the rhythm, right? The drums make the beat. And syncopation is when the music goes off the beat. So there's accents in the music that's off the beat. So it is a difference between syncopation and then drums in particular, because the drums and music, or some music that use the drums anyway, create the beat. So do we think that drums in themselves are not particularly worldly, but it's maybe how the just the music as a whole, including drums, make it worldly, but not every song that has drums in it isn't worldly? Is that what people are saying here? Because from the comments, I'm just trying to gather what we're thinking.
I think the instrument itself is not wrong, but it's the artist's purpose in, transferring that music to the public. What his or her intentions are
Mm-hmm.
can be constructive or destructive. So
Okay.
to be safe, I tell my children, just make music yourself. Don't listen to other artists. And if you feel bored, yeah, it's a safe way to go, instead of relying on the artist because you don't know what their intents and purpose are. Yeah.
So just thinking about that comment, Gloria, so do we need to consider that too? Do we need to consider what message and what the artist is portraying to decide is it worldly to us or not, or should we
Oh,
look at it
sure.
as how we
Yeah.
interpret the song to what it means to us and if it's worldly that way?
You can sort of, when you listen to music, you can sort of sense it, if it's productive, constructive to you or not. I think
Mm-hmm.
most of us can sense that.
So
And
then,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
no, continue.
Their music can be such a powerful, constructive to our health
Mm-hmm.
in our mind and body. But in the other side, it can be such a destructive and could lead us astray to a, wrong path.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a double-edged sword there.
Okay.
So my question would be on this topic we're right on right now, is it only subjective then?
Right.
Or do we have an objective view that we could all embrace, or is it just subjective?
Yeah. Right. Because then my next question is it certain genres of music that are considered worldly? Is this subjective too? Or should we say, rock music is worldly, hip hop is worldly, um, country music is worldly. Does it matter the genre of music? Because maybe certain, well, I don't know, classical, I mean, I guess they do use drums. So is the genre of music also make music worldly or not?
Like when you go to shopping, you go to Costco, Walmart, anywhere, you hear this really loud beat music. And I just enjoy it for that moment when I'm there. But definitely, I wouldn't be doing that when I'm by myself. I know that's
Hmm.
not very constructive to me. But whatever situation we are, like if we're exercising in a gym, if they have loud music, you just have to tolerate and go with the flow there. It's helpful for what you're trying to do. But yeah, it's your choice, I guess, when you're by yourself.
Okay.
I think no. I think I all it's interesting because I wonder, well, how's the music gonna sound like in heaven? Because there's all these different genres of music down here on earth. And so it just made me think like, with the different genres of music, how is it, going to be in heaven with, the different harmonies and melodies and, singing that occurs there. Um, it just made me think, and I mean, I don't think that pop, rock. I mean, there's certain genres that I like more than others, and that's my personal preference, and someone may say the same thing, like they like certain genres of music better that may be different than what I like. Um, but that's just me, and I wouldn't consider those genres worldly. It's like a
Hmm.
class or a category of the different types of music there are. Like, I wouldn't just, name music as worldly or a genre of music as worldly. But that's just me, and I could be wrong, but that's how I see it.
Yeah,
But
I don't. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What about the way that we define worldliness? Should that be taken into consideration?
Absolutely.
So then, is it then that we should be thinking about it from the aspect of, is it the drumming that is wrong, or should we be thinking about it from the angle that Elder Parminder taking it, the nature of man, what harm does the music do, but also then within context, then lyrics. If we're talking about not just the beat or the rhythm, but also the lyrics that is there, shouldn't we then, how would we define worldliness? Because I think that would be the important thing to determine whether or not music is worldly or not worldly. Shouldn't we define the context of what is worldly? And if you're talking about it within context of rhythm, what would make it a worldly rhythm?
So when we think about what we consider as worldly, something that, well, a type of music that doesn't uplift Christ, it like has these what we may consider non-Christian values. So that's just a short general definition of worldly, something that doesn't necessarily have Christian values. I don't think it necessarily
So,
connects with the instruments. That's why I was saying, do we consider drums being in music worldly or not?
but that's what I'm asking. Can we go by that definition of what worldliness is?
Hmm.
Especially where we are in understanding about culture and nationalism as worldliness and sexism as worldliness and those kind of things. Can we define worldliness anymore as something that does not uplift Christ? What does
Hmm.
that mean?
Do you
What
think
does it
worldliness
mean that
could be
uplift
those
Christ?
worldliness could be those music and messages that promote sexism, patriarchy, power, drugs, sex, like this really heavy metal music. Those are definitely, not good to listen in any ways. Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't think we can just broad brush worldliness as we did before, like saying, oh, it does not. What does it mean for something to uplift Christ? Because I remember this study being done as what does it mean to worship God? And we spoke about the most important aspect of it being the six. And the six, in doing the six, that's how you honor the four, by loving your fellow human beings. So if it is that you're uplifting your fellow human being through whatever it is that you're doing, even though you do not say the name Christ, isn't it uplifting Christ?
That's a good question. Because we have been focusing on the six, right? So if this music is not particularly, if we would say doesn't mention Christ, we don't hear that in the music, but it's uplifting people, just society as a whole. Do we look at that still as not worldly because Christ is not necessarily mentioned in the music, but it's uplifting up humans as a whole?
Can I say something? Um,
Yes.
the gospel, I don't see gospel up there as a genre, but
Oh,
gospel has it's supposed to be like music that is about God and one's relationship with God, and that contains certain, especially contemporary gospel, contains like hip hop, I mean a mixture of genres, like I should say a mixture of styles of music, and that includes drums, all kinds of instruments in there. You have people dancing, all kinds of stuff to gospel music, including contemporary Christian music. And what one the Christian music that's played today and like all throughout when it started, when music um was when gospel music, was created and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you, Victoria. I think one of those, the spiritual, music that are just heartfelt songs that, people in slavery and all that they compose. Those are really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll hear old songs like You've Got a Friend, when you're down and troubled and you need some loving care and nothing is going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. Even though that maybe wasn't sung about Jesus, I've often heard those lyrics and it makes me think about Jesus. I'll insert Jesus into that framework of those lyrics. I don't know if anyone else has done that.
But why? What about? Is it wrong to think about a friend or a person that is there if you're having a, or thinking about a support system that you have when you are really down and out? That's what I'm asking. Like, does who is Christ? When Christ said, "When I was an hungered, you fed me not. When I was thirsty, you gave me not to drink." Who is Christ? Who was Christ talking? He was not talking about himself in the flesh. It was other human beings. And as you talk about gospel music, I find gospel music harder to listen to than anything in the world. Because when I'm listening to gospel music, the different terms that we are speaking about, every gospel music talks to God as Father, as a man. Those things like having to constantly be guarding your mind or against the words that are being brought in, or a lot of them are the immortality of the soul. There's a lot of different issues outside of rhythm with gospel music that to me make them more harmful than the other music that people would even consider to be worldly music.
What one genre that's not up there is folk. And that was one of my earliest musical influences besides rock music, since I had a much older sister who had an extensive record collection and just loved to play her hi-fi all the time. But she played, this was in the 60s, she played quite a, large amount of folk music. And, from the age of 2 onward, I was singing those songs. Probably didn't understand them. And I sang some of the rock music too from the popular bands of that era. That all, and the folk music, that was protest music. Those people were getting that inspiration from, I can't think of the early folk performers. And some of it, was kind of inspirational. Some of it was silly. But as I was growing up, I clung to these roots and was influenced more by her, you know, um, the things that she played and the protest music and the psychedelic music. And I was like 6 or 7 years old and I was listening to these things and, maybe not quite fully understanding all of it, but it carried on. And like everybody else my age, we grasped onto all the different rock music. And now when I listen to some of that stuff now, or when people are playing it, I should say, and I hear it, things like Pink Floyd, I find it so depressing. Back in those days when I had a lot of reasons to be depressed from my family situation and just being a teenager in general, it really, hit home for me. I mean, in blues, I hooked onto the blues. I can't listen to that stuff now because it just immediately drags me down into depression because it's kind of depressing music. And so, I mean, today I don't make listening to music a big priority in my life because of the things Alameen was saying. You know, even the gospel music, you're having a guard when you listen to that. The one thing, as I was trained to play classical on certain instruments, jazz on others, the one thing I've gravitated to if I'm gonna listen to music is classical. It tends not to be syncopated. It's usually, you know, straight out normal rhythm. And you don't have that problem with lyrics to deal with, um, where you're trying to keep your mind on something better. Um, so if I was going to play an instrument, and there's guitar too, I struggled later in life. Like, what am I going to play on these things? You know, I used to play rock and folk, and now I don't want to do, you know, necessarily do that anymore. So I'll gravitate toward the classical. That becomes a safe zone for me, where I don't have to contend with all these issues. I mean, personally. But yeah, the music from my youth doesn't, some of it just doesn't do it for me anymore. It has the opposite effect on me. And I think maybe that music is like the chicken or the egg. Maybe that music was making me depressed. Now that I think about it, it wasn't lifting me up. It was dragging me further down. So that, you know, I've learned to make better choices.
Linda, I think folk should be on that list because most of the music that's on there, I think, is derived from folk music. I see the roots in all those genres. You can hear it in there. And I want to clarify something. I said I was a drummer, but I was an African drummer. I played African drums, and the drums I played were outlawed from the time they were brought here in the minds of the slaves, but they were fashioned here in the Americas. But as soon as they fashioned them, they were outlawed by the slave masters because they feared that they were communicating with the drums to other people, and their fear was that they were plotting to overthrow the slave masters and stuff, so they outlawed, and they would actually kill people for drumming their native songs. And the music I played was folk music. It was African folk music is what I played. And that folk music is the base for rock and blues.
Yep.
And modern jazz is it's all integrated in that. If you look at the history,
Yeah.
and even gospel and all that. And so it's
Yeah,
embedded in there.
the early jazz performers, if you think about them, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie
Yeah.
Parker. I mean, all those people I listened to and I emulated and I imitated. I could play like sounding like Charlie Parker, and that was the one that really grabbed me. And yeah, they were, and those came out of those, you know, in the movie Roots. I remember
Yeah.
their communication through drums. You
Right.
know, you know, communicating with each other, basically saying, you know, we're going to escape from, we're going to run, we're going to escape now. You know, we're making a plan. Um, but yeah, a lot of, you know, in the 1950s when rock really hit the waves, the parents were like, nope, we don't want our kids listening to that African music. That was the big, you know, and then the radio stations were banning the music. But then the white performers came along like Elvis Presley. And that was controversial, what they were doing. But like everything else, you know, if it sticks around long enough, it becomes acceptable. But in the beginning, definitely not. And there was racism involved. but and they were also Protestant, and parents, and they were like, no, we don't want our kids getting indoctrinated. We don't want our kids getting wrapped up in this sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Some of the drumming that I did, the Africans were so clever that the people who worked on the docks, carrying in fish and stuff that was taken out of the sea, were always put in wooden boxes, and they were brought into the marketplace. They would take those wooden boxes and start drumming on the wooden boxes, so that way nobody could take away their drum, because it was something, and they would, and to this very day they still have a form called yambu, which is played on all wooden boxes, and that was to commemorate, the slave owners taking away their drums, and they keep it alive to this very day. It's alive in Cuba. And also, they learn how to play the drum beats on their hands and clap. They would clap different drum beats and sing, and that's how they kept their percussion uh, alive through the slavery. Because the slave master couldn't chop off their hands, because they needed them to work. But they would clap it. They still have it today. They have groups that still clap and carry melodies and all that, and they do whole songs and everything. It's kind of interesting, but bottom line, they were outlawed because of who brought them over here, who brought that percussive instrument and sound. They outlawed. It made them fearful of what they're really doing or saying. They misunderstood. They weren't communicating to another person, but that was one of the excuses given to crack down on it, to keep them suppressed, kind of thing.
I want to thank you so much, Francisco, for that history. Some of that I didn't even know. I feel a little embarrassed, but very, very, very good. I played the drums too, so don't beat me up.
Oh.
And one of the prettiest songs I still think is played in the Louisiana style when the Saints come marching in, drums.
Oh, yeah.
Prettiest songs you ever want to hear. It makes you think.
Well, you know what? I got bad vibes from both sides. I got bad vibes from uh European people, descendant people, for drumming the African drums, and then I would get it from the black people for drumming the African drums, because I'm not African. I'm Native American and Latin American, but I'm not African. But that was one of the musics that I enjoyed when I was a young man. I listened to it, and I just felt the rhythm, and it kind of I enjoyed it. It was really exciting and exhilarating, and there's a lot of there's joy in it. And I think music comes down to intent, like everybody was talking about. It's how you intend those rhythms to come across. What is your intention with that?
What they didn't understand is that Native Americans had drums, Polynesians had drums, Africans had drums.
Right.
Yeah.
Drums it's a worldwide instrument.
Yeah.
You find that in every place, everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. That's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you.
But there aren't that many women drummers, right? I think I've only seen men drummers.
No, we had women drummers.
Hmm.
Maybe we were really progressive, but the singers were black and white and everything. We had all different kinds of people in our group, and we would get looks until we played the drums and sang the songs, and people enjoyed it afterwards. They they knew that we knew what we were playing. We knew our stuff, and we did it well. And we did it for entertainment, and that's what we were being paid for, to entertain people, you know. And that's what we would do. We would entertain people. And there's religious parts of it, but we didn't bring that to a secular thing. We knew how to do it and play it and all that, but we didn't bring it, even though we would use the same instruments. Uh, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, for such great discussion thus far. So, no matter if music is worldly or not, is music innate, right? So, music is considered like a natural human trait. While music as a specific form is shaped by culture and individual creativity, the ability to perceive and create rhythm, melody, and harmony is deeply rooted in human nature. Many researchers believe that humans are born with a predisposition for music. And Christine mentioned a child hearing the mother's heartbeat. So that's connected to that. This innate capacity includes the ability to perceive and respond to rhythm, melody, and harmony, and to create music using instruments or voices. Studies suggest that certain brain structures may serve as a foundation for musical development. So, if we think music, certain music that we hear is worldly or not, it's innate, right? Um, do we believe that we have these, well, research does show we have like these brain structured in a certain way that kind of serves as a foundation where we can perceive melody, rhythm, and harmony. So if we have that, then what do we think about listening to music? Um, it seems that people here are pretty open to listening to music, but do we think that this is something that we are built in, and why? Why do we think that this is something that's already built within us? Why do you think God created us with such an ability to be able to perceive um, music?
Wow, that's an excellent question. I can't wrap my thoughts around the whole entire question yet, but I did want to share that one of the members, and what was really interesting is, um, oh, what was his name? Marvin Gaye. Remember Marvin Gaye? Many of you might know the name. And in church, the first time I went to the Adventist church in the Bay Area, the man behind me, I didn't see him yet, but we all stood to sing, and the man behind me sounded to me like Marvin Gaye. And so when we sat down after singing the song, I turned around and I was like, wow, you sound just like Marvin Gaye. And he giggled and he said Marvin Gaye was his cousin. That this was Junroy Gaye, right? So I was like, wow, really? Because I could really hear that the voice was almost the same. Well, Junroy had a stroke. He had a stroke so bad that he couldn't talk. So we all went to the hospital, several of us, not everyone, but several of us who really loved Junroy went. We brought the hymn book and we began to sing hymns that Junroy liked. And you know, his eyes got very alert. And his doctor happened to come in at the time we were singing, and she told us to continue that. She said that they have proven scientifically that the brain and language, that music is involved in it, and that if we work with Junroy in that way, that we can help him get his speech back. And I thought, wow, that's incredible.
Mhm.
So I know there's something very powerful about it, but unfortunately, I think many um, Pharisaical uh, Adventists and maybe other Christians, they go right to the scripture that music was made when Lucifer was created, right? So it's got to be something really bad about it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and we neglect to see the positive. We plug right into that negative if we allow ourselves to plug straight away, because we know we even liken our message when we're all in unity in this message, that it will be like the music, right? That because it has a melody. And if you also go back to some of the early, oh, I can't think of what they're called right now, but they developed like haiku poetry,
Mhm. Mhm.
lyrics that had a rhythm just to the lyric without
Mhm.
the music, right? And they found that it was extremely powerful, that it could produce almost a medicinal effect upon the body. And they would even integrate that type of rhythmed lyric with a rhythmed beat, almost like a pharmaceutical experiment of some type. But anyway, very fascinating question. And thank you for your graciousness to let us all share.
No, I appreciate the sharing. Any thoughts on that? Any other thoughts? So, so I want to look at
I want to share a thought. Like if you think about music now, there's a lot of like people talk about drumming, the bowls, those bowls that those brass bowls. Do you know what I'm talking? Where you would they call you have sound bass in different frequencies. There's a lot of that now. Would that fall in the category of music as well?
mhm. Yeah, so frequencies, that's what I want to look at now. So everything with mass has a natural frequency at which it vibrates. So this frequency is determined by the object's physical properties, such as its stiffness and mass. When an object is disturbed, it will vibrate at its natural frequency or a combination of natural frequencies. So every object from atoms to planets has this natural frequency at which it vibrates when it's disturbed. Earth's natural electromagnetic frequency hovers around 7.83 hertz. This frequency is believed to influence biological rhythms and impact human health and well-being. And this is what I think Susan was mentioning when she was talking about the person in the hospital. So the whole body has a fundamental resonant frequency around 5 hertz. Other body parts like the head and torso have natural frequencies between 4 to 12 hertz, and individual organs and cells also vibrate at specific frequencies. When an external force matches an object's natural frequency, resonance occurs, leading to amplified vibrations. So, being in a forest, near water, or in an open field are said to offer exposure to natural frequencies that can positively impact our well being. So, a couple of ways that we can connect with natural frequencies are to engage with nature or walk like barefoot on a natural surface. These methods help align our body's energy with the earth's natural frequencies, promoting balance and well-being. Natural frequencies are fundamental to music. So musical instruments utilize materials and shapes that produce pleasing natural frequencies, which, when combined, create musical sounds and melodies. So different frequencies correspond to different pitches, and the relationship between these frequencies determine musical intervals and scales. For example, a guitar string vibrates at a certain frequency when plugged, and that frequency determines the note that we hear. So nature itself has these frequencies because everything vibrates all the way down to the atom. They all vibrate, and they vibrate because of the functions, like the functions that cells do within the cell requires the cells, well, not requires, but the cells vibrates because of the functions that's happening to them all the way out to planets. So everything has these vibrations. They have these frequencies, and these frequencies that go out are connected to music. So when we think about just our natural environment, there is like these this just natural um, atmosphere or environment around us where we are always encountering these frequencies, and we hear like the birds chirping. That's music. We have music around us like constantly. So I just wanted to talk about this subject because I recently was speaking to someone about music, and I was just really trying to get a just more clarity within myself, about what is worldly music, what isn't worldly music, is what is music, why is there music? Is music just something that is connected to nature itself? And I believe it is when we think about these natural frequencies that are about, and we have this vibration within us too, right? Because we're made up of atoms. So we have these vibrations. We can connect with nature through these frequencies. It's just innate. I do believe that music is innate, and I think that within ourselves, we should think about, you know, we should think about what do we believe is worldly, or what we shouldn't be, or what we don't think is worldly. I don't know if we should have a movement consensus. Maybe we should. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we should have a movement consensus about what is worldly music, what isn't worldly music? Because I don't know. Is it subjective?
Jamaica.
Yes.
So I had a thought on, because we have a movement consensus on worldly. It's within the realm of patriarchy. It's control, domination. It's us versus them, one side versus the other. That's what I thought we had come to the understanding of worldly. It differs from the writings of Ellen White because that was worldly definition for her time. We now understand worldliness to be the patriarchal control mechanisms around everything. So if we look at worldly music, I actually see worldly music now to be a lot of Christian music, where they're forcing this patriotic, patriarchal, male-dominated view of God and society and family onto people. That's how I define it.
Yeah, and that agrees with what I was pointing out earlier about, what a lot of people, even what a lot of people thought of as innocent music or innocent sounding music, had very sexist language in it. And I don't actively seek out any of it anymore. I don't, put it on, but when I hear it, it just, screams. The way the singers portrayed women, the way they referred to them, the names they called them, and the innuendos they put upon them, and it's just, and rock and roll's just full of it, and a lot of pop music was stuff I came of age listening to, sexist, and even the women performers. Well, some of them were not, but yeah, you have to be discerning and careful, and you got to sort through it all. And for my part, I've just chosen not to bother because you have to go through a lot of, mess before you find something decent sometimes. Um, so yeah, it's my input.
Okay. Thank you. So, no, I agree that patriarchy, we are we're in agreement that patriarchy is worldly. So I see your point in saying that any music that is presented that way, this patriarchal aspect to it, then we consider that worldly. So then the question is there any other, like, and not even trying to box music in certain genres, but just let's say any song that someone hears that doesn't present that aspect, is not patriarchal, then we won't consider that particular music worldly. So then is that okay? Or is that, how should we look at it that way? Do you see what I'm asking?
When you're asking, I remember this study Elder Parminda had done. And from that study, I taken away from it that we should look at music from the concept of the impact and effect that it has on the body. And he had spoken about certain type of music for different environment, like the music that you would listen to would be a faster beat music in the gym, or somebody spoke about washing the dishes or doing certain activities. You wouldn't listen to classical music within the gym. It doesn't give you the kind of energy or vibe that you would need to do the kind of workout that you would be seeking to do. I remember him placing it within those contexts of not just saying, oh, I think from it he had defined, as Alisa had said, what is worldliness using the patriarchal construct, but also understanding the nature of man, using the nature of human beings using our nature to understand prolonged exposure, even when you were talking about the syncopation, and he had addressed that as well about whether syncopation is worldly or harmful, saying that the, we should have an understanding of how our bodies work and therefore understand as well what prolonged exposure to certain things, the impact that they have. Therefore, we should be intelligent in the things that we do or the decisions that we make. So outside of what Alisa had said with the patriarchal construct, I think from that study that he had done, I had gleaned that I should consider my body, the nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, the impact of whatever it is on my nervous system, and therefore seek ways how to say, okay, prolonged exposure, the impact that it causes or has, things like that. That's what I gotten from that study. I don't know if anybody else can say what they got from it at that time, if they can remember.
Yes.
I think
So
that's right too, Ellen.
you're right. He did say that during that study. So, and touching on like the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and um, we want to focus on mainly being in the parasympathetic, I believe that's right, mode. And so then you want to listen to music that will put you there, right, in that state. But then if you're doing something like exercising, you may not want to be listening to music that will put you in the parasympathetic state. Yes, so no, I do remember that point. I'm just really just trying to open up for just further and more discussion about this topic of music. So no, I do remember that.
I think music can bring healing too, or helps with healing as well. That you might associate music to a certain place and time that takes you back to that place, whether it be good or bad. Um, Preferably obviously good, but it can take you to different, you be associated to different things. Like Linda brought up the 80s music. I had the complete
Mhm.
opposite of 80s music. 80s music was a time when I was going through a very liberating experience emotionally and growing. So that music brings me back to that joy and happiness. So music can be healing as well, I believe.
No, actually, it took me back to college, which wasn't a bad time. Um, High school to college. It was the earlier stuff that, I was associating with some of the, more depressing moments in my childhood and stuff. Um, but basically, I had no choice about it. It was played in my house, and I heard it, I listened to it, and I learned it. um, and so I began to associate some of it, like, with those depressing moments. And then in the 80s, everything was upbeat. I was in college, and we would go and we dance to that stuff and just, get rid of our stress or something. And I wasn't paying too much attention at the time to the lyrics or the themes of the songs or the movies. But it was just, when I hear it, I want to move like Molly Ringwald in The Breakfast Club again. Um, so yeah, the 80s, it wasn't a bad time for me. It's just, I can't do that stuff now. But the 70s stuff, that in the 60s and 70s stuff, some of it was drawing me back to more depressing points in my life. And there was also the styles of the music, that affected me differently.
Mm-hmm.
Tamika,
Okay.
are you gonna play us some samples?
No.
Use a delay in the mode. Okay, just ask.
Sorry, no. I have no samples. Okay, so yeah, so um this is actually what Elaine just brought up. So is music good for us? So music enriches our lives in numerous ways, including providing emotional support, enhancing cognitive function, and fostering social connections. It can evoke joy, which people are expressing, reduce stress, improve memory, and even aid in pain management. Ultimately, music plays a powerful role in shaping our emotional landscapes and connecting us to ourselves and others. Music can uplift our souls when we're feeling down, provide comfort during difficult times, and help us relax when we're stressed. Listening to calming music can lower heart rate and blood pressure and even reduce levels of the stress hormone cortisol. Music can be a powerful tool for memory recall, with certain songs triggering vivid memories and helping patients with memory loss. Music can motivate us to exercise and make workouts more enjoyable. Music is good for our mental health. So I think ultimately, um, music can be good for us. It can be good for our mental health, to reduce stress, um, to get us through difficult times. It's just what music are you listening to? Um, what state is that music putting you into? Um, I I guess that's the important things when it comes to music. Uh, does anyone have any thoughts about this, like how music can actually be beneficial?
I was going to just say an opposite thing because there's also music that can induce anger and rage in people.
Yeah.
So, it goes both ways, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
and they
So,
use it in torture settings too, music. So depending on, right, where they crank it up real loud, right? They
mm-hmm.
did that. I'm trying to think, what was that called? Waco? That's a big
Guantanamo
example.
Bay.
Yeah, where they blast in the music and it's real heavy. Um, so it depends on where it's coming from and how it's being used, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
In massage therapy, I did aromatherapy as a part of it, right? And I remember I was doing a particular Ayurvedic, I was studying an Ayurvedic method because I did a lot of Ayurvedic services. I studied under Aveda. And I remember we were learning to identify from a customer's face, like certain scents, if the person a person may smell something and they may say, oh, yes, that smells good. But we were trained to look at the response on their faces because we were trained to say, see, a person may say, yes, it smells good, but if you look at their face, it may trigger a bad memory, something that is negative. So while they say, yes, it smells good, their body language is saying, no, I don't like that. And I believe it is the same thing with music. That
Mm-hmm.
persons have different experiences, that one music might trigger something good and positive in somebody, or somebody may say yes, it sounds good, but for the other person it may trigger something negative. It has a similar impact to scent. Sometimes unconsciously you may be triggered in an unconscious way, that you don't recognize or realize. So it's interesting, as you were discussing that came back to mind about scent, how somebody can say yes, this smells good, but their body language says no, I don't want that. It triggers negative memories or feelings, and I think it's similar with music as well.
Shamika, good morning. This is
Good
Fel.
morning.
Yeah, thank you for this what can be a controversial subject. I think it's I think it's very good discussion. And I think perhaps music, dancing, the genre, all that we've discussed, so far, I maybe perhaps this is one of those, the Bible verse that says, to him that is sin, it is sin. Because, I think, like for me, for example, my very absolute favorite song when I was growing up is Cats in the Cradle by, I think it was Cat Stevens, I think. I don't know if you ever heard of the song Cats in the Cradle. But to me, that was huge, not growing up with a father. I did not have a father. My biological father was killed in the Vietnam War when I was 3 years old. So I did not. I mean, I grew up with various men. My mother's life. But I did not have a father. So the song Cats in the Cradle was huge, had a huge impact for me. And that's the father that I did not want to be. I didn't know what father to be, but definitely I knew what kind of father I did not want to be. And it was because of that song, Cats in the Cradle. And so, there are, there are songs that, like Linda, I don't go out looking for. I hardly listen to any music at all. I'm too busy to listen to music. I don't even listen to gospel because, I think somebody said that even gospel can be problematic because of all the patriarchal inferences. So I don't even listen to that hardly. But I think music, I mean, they've shown scientifically that music can have a healing effect to those who are, those who are ill. You put certain type of music, and it helps them heal. And one of my mother's longtime partner for over 30 years, 35 years, in his later years, he had dementia. But give him a song, and he'll remember those old songs because he used to be in a band called Salt and Pepper a long time ago, playing calypso music. You put a drum in front of him, and he'll drum out the beat. But you tell him my name, 10 seconds later, he won't remember who I am. So I do think that music can be beneficial. I think we all have a general idea what music that can be harmful and not to listen to. Like for me, example, I don't listen. I don't listen to rave because I think the beats are boring. The same beats, all the same beats, kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. For 10, 15, 20 minutes, it's very boring. And there's certain other music that like heavy metal that I headbanging metals that I don't listen to. But there's some music that if I come across in the YouTube that I will really listen to because it was part of a counterculture. Like back in the 70s. War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. So there are those counterculture musics that if I come across, I'm not seeking it, that hey, brings back to a better time, a good time, and brings back better memories. So I think it's music, and we talked about innate. You put a child that can hardly walk or not walk and sit up, and you play music, and you'll see them bouncing. And the parents don't dance, and they don't particularly look at TV with dancing. like Lawrence Welk or anything like that, but you play a music and these little infants will start bouncing and they feel it. So I do believe it's innate. So I think it's, and I think we also have to have the grace. Now, earlier I mentioned in the, I think when David was teaching DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And I think we have to have enough grace to allow people to listen to the kind of music that they, listen to without being judgmental, without being harsh, without being critical. So I think there's, that aspect of it too. So, yeah, so thank you for bringing up this topic, Shamika.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, what did we think about that thought that Phil had? That should we or shouldn't we be critical to people about whatever music they're listening to? Should we be critical if the music is worldly? What do you think?
I have a comment. Thank you, Shamika. I did write a few notes there. Thank you for what you've shared with us. And I think all of us, we've all had different experiences, especially with music. And for my life, it wasn't so much music when I was a young child, but as I started to grow up and my life as a teenager was going more in the direction of the music of the 70s, as Linda mentioned. Prior to that, in the 60s, it was the Beatles, way back then. But alcohol was predominant in my life. And so I was drawn into the music, not for determining whether it's good music or not, but how did it make me feel? And I had alcohol mixed with the music so that it was always leading me in the wrong direction, of course. And then later on in my life, I became a Christian. I became a Seventh-day Adventist, and there was the music with the heritage singers. So we probably all know about the heritage singers. And they gave concerts. They were fairly new in that time that I joined the Adventist church. And I found that music very soothing, although it wasn't mixed in my life with alcohol. So I'm thinking about what everyone has shared now, and I'm looking back and saying, it was good music. And the music I listened to when I had a mind that was being influenced by alcohol, was that bad music? Or was it the alcohol? It was the alcohol that was influencing me towards the music that I was drawn to. And when I was an Adventist, it wasn't alcohol, but the words and the style of the heritage singers I found very soothing, very calming to my spirit. And yet I wouldn't be drawn so much to the heritage singers today. I think there are other groups out there that are guitar music, maybe, that are singing songs that would be, say, contemporary, Christian contemporary music. But it's relaxing to me to hear the words and the style. And I know that God influences. The influence of the Holy Spirit in my life is directing and guiding me to what is calming and what is really good. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the same situation. My mother drank through my entire teen years, and the music at the time I was listening to was fitting for that. But and I mean I can't say whether it actually uplifted me or depressed me, but because of the situation I was in. And my father did some drinking too, and she was mentally ill. So the whole thing, through those 18 years, all of that situation, I just relegated to my, depressed zone. And the music, that went along with it at that time. But then I left home and listened to different music. And so I associated the different music types with the different situations I was in, And well, when anytime, you have a depressing situation and there's a song associated with it, it will always take you back to that situation.
For sure. Thank you, Linda.
Can I say something? I just want to share something real quick. For me, speaking honestly, I like all kinds of music. Not saying that how can I put this? Like all different kinds of genres of music, a little bit of like everything. Some stuff I just don't, and some I like more than others. But the point that I'm trying to say is that, but deciphering whether, the music within every genre that I listen to or something like that, that, is different than just saying to me than just saying that I like bits and pieces of every type of genre of music, because there's more to look into when you're listening to something. But I know that like I guess my question comes to like can music be, if this makes sense, dispensational according, or the purpose of music be dispensational to our individual experience? It's kind of like what I was hearing, maybe what Linda was kind of saying. And I only say this because I don't listen to as much gospel as I would back in the day, or contemporary Christian music as I would, as I did growing up. But I know that there was a time where gospel music saved my life. I would say, like, I know that I was going through some trials, and it was like to the point where like I was going through something and I couldn't even open up the Bible, but I listened to gospel, and that like just kept me. I don't, just
Mm-hmm.
through what I was going through, and experiencing with God, and just myself in life. So, I don't know, like, and that music was healing. Now, would I listen to those same songs that I was listening to back then today? No, possibly not. But in that time, it was really helpful. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
different songs, really helped me at different times, whether it was like a considered, secular song or gospel or contemporary song. Whatever the music was that helped me or made me feel good, when I was going through something. Because a lot of times if I'm feeling, down, or um, like I would gravitate to music, and it would always
Mm-hmm.
like lift up my spirit. And that's just my own experience. And then there's times where like I will listen to like hymns, just the hymns like what Elaine and Kathy play, like just regular hymns. And those hymns, like if I'm going through something or just random, all of a sudden I'm starting to hum a hymn, like just sing a hymn. It's like, what is it? Why am I singing? Why is this coming to my head right now? And a lot of times, I don't know, it would be neat because that hymn will like serve a purpose, and whatever I was like, whether I needed like a uplifting or just, I don't know, it was just nice to have those songs come back to me in those moments. So anyways, I just think music is a wonderful thing. And yeah, so thanks.
No, thank you.
Hi.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
I just want to add a little bit something uh, about the goodness of music in us, and the way I perceive music. I perceive it in a way that in a form of art, and we, like all of us, that's like people or human being, we have different tastes in art, either in music or in a lot of things, food and like a lot of stuff. And when I listen to music, I perceive it as like if I like the sound make me feel in a certain way. Not all the sound make me feel the same way, but there are a lot of sound that make me feel a certain way. So I can say, oh, I don't like that sound, and I can also say I like that sound. It's the same with all of us. Like we have some of the sound that we don't like, and we have the sound, some of the sound that we like individually. So to put it like in terms that we can all understand, like we perceive sound in a different way individually. And also there's some of the sound that we all agree on. Like when somebody plays that music, everyone, oh, I like that sound. A lot of people, like thousand, million of people, like, oh, we love that song because of the way the sound make them feel. So the sound bring them together, like they have the same feeling. And some of the sound don't make us feel the same way. So I would see music in that way. And also like there are a lot of factors that goes into it, whether you like just the artist who put all the song and crap it together, or just like you just like the sound. So it depends on individual and how they perceive that sound and how the sound make them feel.
Thank you. So then, thinking about what Victoria Emmanuel just shared, how does people listening to music that's uplifting them in the moment, that's making them feel better about themselves in the moment, how does that connect with patriarchy? Um, what if a particular song that someone's listening to and it's making them feel better, but there's lines within this music that is just we know it's just not acceptable. How does that fit in with this? I don't have any like I don't have a decision in it. I just really wanted to bring up this subject because I was speaking to someone recently about this subject, and I just want to delve into what the group felt about these different things. And I just wanted to just have different questions and just different things out there just for discussion purposes. But I am kind of curious about the question I'm asking now. What do we think about that? If someone's listening to a song that is lifting them up in a moment, but they also hear maybe a line or two or whatever in the song that they know is not acceptable, what do we think about that? Should the person just say, well, hey, nope, I'm not going to listen to this anymore because I heard that line in the song that I am not in agreement to? Because I don't know, maybe it'd be a battle with the person, but this song overall is fitting in the moment. It's comforting me in the moment. I don't know. Just anyone?
I
Oh,
had a couple of thoughts on that because a lot of the music that I used to listen to, I went through, as we put in the chat, listening to Ivor Myers and some of the others, and just saw it as very condemning to listen to anything outside of any kind of hymns. And so what I did kind of gravitate towards is some of those songs that I used to listen to that were making me feel good, was I'd go back and I'd look at the lyrics and I'd look into what the person was trying to say. And I found a lot of the ones that I gravitated towards, I never paid attention to the lyrics and
Mm-hmm.
found that they were written during the civil rights for such purposes, anti-war. So I tend to gravitate at looking at the lyrics to see what they mean. I don't believe in necessarily putting condemnation on anybody if something makes them feel better especially going through a difficult time, because what one person might find really offensive might really offer someone else some uplifting that they needed. Those are my thoughts on it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hi, Shamika. Oh, go ahead, Phil.
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't want to sidetrack or, to switch the topic. A thought came to mind and I put it in the chat. I was saying, what about hearing each other's voices? Because at times, sometimes from my personal experience, sometimes I'm down and not necessarily hearing what, let's say, I hear Elaine's voice, Suzanne, Alyssa, Fel, etc., not necessarily what they're saying, but just hearing their voices, for me, it uplifts. What about, voices? I don't want to stray from the topic.
Yeah, that's a nice thought.
So I actually think that that ties into the matter that we're talking about, because if somebody is finding something uplifting, so I'm not sure if you're framing the question, Shalmika, as far as to us, if we're observing somebody else listening to something that we're finding objectionable, or if that other person is finding objectionable. Because if we're finding something objectionable that another person finds uplifting, then I think if we say something to that other person in biblical terms, that's tying a millstone. That's saying something that's going to weight them down.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we do that except to assert our know-how, our superiority over knowledge, so to speak?
Yeah.
So if that other person comes to us and expresses, or to themselves saying, "Oh gosh, that's really bad," but it makes me feel so good, that person has to justify why they continue to listen to it. I don't see my role in that.
Now, I have a little something to say if I can. First,
Sure.
sorry for Phil's dad dying in Vietnam. I won't call it a pleasure, but I was over there 69, 70. Now, a lot of people didn't realize that music was the only therapy at hand over there. You get nasty fights, the only thing you could wind down with music. Now, one of the biggest songs over there was War. What is it good for? You could hear that all the time playing. I'm like, what was his name? And it was very therapeutic. Most of the songs didn't have no cursing, swearing. They were Motown. And what was amazing that most of the northern guys, excuse me for saying white guys, they listened to Motown. I'm like, okay, come on with it, And it was very therapeutic at that time. Like I said, there was a lot of cursing and swearing in it, but that's all we had over there to calm down after an interesting, nasty day over there in the Vietnam jungle. And that, like I said, that's the only therapeutic we really had over there. Was that
Music.
music?
Yeah.
And most of it was Motown. Well, you had some other guys from other parts of the country who was playing some other stuff, and it's like whatever. But music is what everybody had at hand.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that, Renee.
Yeah, so this is Phil.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, um, I, I I agree with everybody's perspective on music. Elaine's, Renee's, it's just, and I think this is a place where we need to give grace and space. I mean, after all, we know about patriarchy because we learned patriarchy and the harmfulness of it. So, we need to give grace to those who haven't learned it. And we need to give space to those who, still may listen to music with patriarchal undertone, and they may not even know it because they're not even listening to the lyrics. But it's maybe it's just the music, the melody, and not so much the words that's uplifting them. Maybe it's like you said, that the frequencies and the vibes that you get from the melody, and not so much from the word that's uplifting you. So we don't know what everybody's circumstances are. We just know what we've learned and what's good and what's not good. And so we practice what we learn, but that doesn't mean everybody's in the same page that we're at. So this is where grace and space comes in, and let them have their good feeling. I mean, we all know that. I don't know if any one of us escaped trauma. As children, I would say more of us, would traumatize us as children than not. So there were certain things that we escaped to and made us feel good. And so, now we're progressing. We're progressing heavenward. But we have to understand what made us feel good is what now makes other people feel good. Because of what they might have experienced from their childhood and so on. So we got to give them the grace. We got to give them the space to experience, and then, gently bring them along, if we can, to where we're at. So that's it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other thoughts they wanted to share? That's about it, what I wanted to share today. Again, I just wanted to just put some things out there just for discussion, and because that's what we're here for, right? We're here to meet, speak with each other, try to get a better understanding of God's character, and just to navigate, right, this world. And a good way to navigate and to learn more about ourselves and things is to have discussions. So I just wanted to open it up for that. So, anyone else? All right. Well, let's close in prayer. Lord God, we thank you for this Sabbath day. We thank you for being able to be together on this Sabbath day, to discuss and to share, to grow. We are just so grateful to be able to meet with all of those across the country here in one place. We thank you for Christ who died to save us. We thank you for his example to us. And we just ask that you continue to be with each and every one of us, and to continue to be with us as we continue this journey. In Christ's name, amen.